Hey everyone, Flo from OFTWOLANDS here, and today we're talking gear. I often get asked about the gear that I use to create my travel videos, and whilst I had made a similar video a few years ago, my kit has changed quite a bit over the last 2 years or so I thought it would be a good time to make a video about my current one. So I will go over the kit that I use for my travel content in 2025 and why I chose those items. And as always, all the links will be listed in the description as well. Before I start, don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one, and let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by Artlist. Over the past 12 years or so, my travel kit has changed many times. Since it is a travel kit, the idea behind it is always to keep things as compact and light as possible, but I still want to be able to create beautiful images. In terms of travel content, I capture anything from cities to wild places, and it can be during the summer as well as winter, and in different weather and lighting conditions. I started making proper travel videos back in 2014 with the original BMCC, which I kept as my main travel camera until I changed to the BMCC6K back in 2018. From early 2021 to late 23, my main travel camera, which also happened to be my main documentary camera at the time, was the BMCC6K Pro. Over the past 2 years, I have changed from Super 35 sensors to full frame sensors, and of course this has had an impact on the way that I shoot, but also the gear and accessories I use. Now let's get into it. The Cinema Camera 6K. As with the previous 6K Pro, there are a lot of reasons why I decided to use the Cinema Camera 6K as my main travel camera. First of all, the image. I absolutely love the image from this sensor. The combination of the full frame sensor with Blackmagic's color science and B-RAW is just incredible. There is so much depth and detail that I find it hard to go back to anything else. And this is why I've shot all of my travel videos with that camera and sensor since I've had it. And even if some people can argue that 13 stops of dynamic range isn't enough, or that the camera isn't good in low light, I think with the correct exposure you can shoot pretty much anything. And it is more than fine, especially for travel content. The aspect ratio is also very important for me and has changed the way that I shoot. Filming open gate 3x2 in 6K with that sensor is one of my favorite things to do, and I think it suits travel content very well. The camera is also very easy to use, and things like changing frame rates or resolution on the go is super quick and simple, which again makes it very easy when traveling. The overall form factor and weight is also important for me. Even though it might look like a large camera to some people, having a DSLR-shaped body that weighs around 1 kilo is actually pretty small for me, especially when compared to cameras like the Ursa Cine or rigged up Pixies that I use for documentary work. It fits in my bag nicely, and I can walk around with it just using a strap. The super bright 5-inch tiltable screen makes for a great shooting experience as well. Whilst I love using monitors, when I travel I actually hate it. Even with the previous Pocket 4K and 6K, I never used a monitor for any of my trips. Having a usable tiltable screen is very handy when I need to get low angles, for example, or when I need to be subtle in a city and shoot from the hip. Then we have the NPF batteries. They last about 1 hour each. I carry 4 with me and they last all day. For example, in New York I only use 2 per day. And lastly, since the price isn't that high for what it offers, I don't feel too stressed when I'm traveling around like I would with a $5,000 or $10,000 camera. Now let's talk about lenses, but before that, here's a quick word about today's sponsor, Artlist. If you don't know what Artlist is, it is a platform that I use for all of my music and SFX, whether it is for my documentary work or for my travel and YouTube content. As always, I wouldn't tell you guys to use something that I didn't use myself. I've started using Artlist 7 years ago, and since then pretty much all of my music and SFX you have heard in my videos are from Artlist. And today I want to talk about some of my favorite features and the ones that I use the most. Artboards. The artboards are definitely one of my favorite parts about Artlist. Since I work on several projects throughout the year, it makes it super easy for me to create these collections that combine both music and SFX per project. It is very easy to go back to and also helps for general organization. So far, I've created more than 140 artboards. You can even now describe your project and get suggested music and sound effects that match your vision, and you can even share them with collaborators. And there's also now a new drag and drop feature that makes it super easy to add music and SFX to any of my artboards. Favorites. There's also a favorite section that features all of the tracks, artists, and SFX that I came across and like. This is super handy for me when I like a few different tracks or a few different SFX, but end up only using 1 or 2 for a specific project. That way I have a selection I know I like and can use for later projects. On top of that, Artlist features a vast amount of choice of high quality assets, and I'm a really big fan of the overall layout. They also offer different plans depending on if you need music and SFX or footage or template, or if you need all of it. If you're interested, be sure to use the link in the description to get an extra 2 months when you subscribe to Artlist for the yearly plan. Even though I own several cinema lenses, when it comes to travel content, I always prefer my Canon zooms. There are 3 main reasons for that. The first one is the range. When I travel, I want to be able to capture what the place looks like and be as quick as possible doing so. Having a zoom lens means I can go from wide to tight very quickly without having to change lenses, which makes them very versatile and they can cover a wide variety of subjects. The second is that they have IS. This is super handy, especially on the Cinema Camera 6K that doesn't have any sort of internal stabilization. When traveling, I rarely use a tripod, and as you know, I shoot most of my travel videos handheld. And finally, they are weather sealed, which means that they will be okay in any environment that I find myself in. The Cinema Camera 6K is of course not sealed whatsoever, but it does give me peace of mind that at least my lenses are. On top of that, they're also quite light, which is important for me on a trip if you need to carry your gear for long periods of time. With one lens, I can cover most places and situations for the day. My go-to lenses are the Canon 24-105 and 70-200, both f4. Of course, it depends on the destination, but on the full-frame sensor of the Cinema Camera 6K, I shoot 90% of my travel content with the 24-105. Usually I prefer not to use adapters, but since I wanted to use these lenses, I have a Sigma EF2L that I've been using since day one with this camera, and it allows me to control the iris, for example, which is another plus of using EF photo lenses. Recently, on some trips, I've started to use primes as well. I actually often bring one just in case. This can be to shoot in super low light, or to have a slightly smaller and lighter kit, or simply to get a different look since the Canon zoom lenses are pretty neutral. For example, I've used a vintage Mir 37mm, as well as a Suri Vision 35. Main accessories. First, we have the Nisi VND. One downside from changing from the 6K Pro to the Cinema Camera 6K is the lack of ND. Travel content is mostly done outdoors, so an ND filter is an essential part of my kit. Having a VND means that you can pretty much be prepared for any situation, so it usually lives on the lens all day long. This is another reason for me to only use one lens per trip. I use a Nisi Swift system. The build quality is great, there is no XFX, and it is color accurate. And on top of the main 1-5 VND, you can also add another 5-9 additional filter, which is super handy. I love that it also includes a case and a lens cap. I have always used cages on my personal and travel cameras, from the BMCC6K to the Cinema Camera 6K. On documentary and commercial shoots, it is mainly to add accessories such as monitors or arms, but during my travels it helps protect the camera. I often put the camera on the ground, even if it is rocky, wet or muddy. Media. I've been using the Wise card since I got my BMCC6K back in 2018. I much prefer to shoot with internal media, especially when traveling, since it means no cables or extra mounting accessories. For my Cinema Camera 6K, I use a few CF Express cards. I usually have a 640 gig as well as two 320s. To be honest, I rarely shoot more than 300 gig per trip. I wanted to focus just on the camera side of my kit, but of course there's a lot more that make up my full travel kit, so here are a few important items. And as always, I'll make sure to link everything below. Peak Design strap. The strap that I use is a Peak Design slide. This item, and more specifically the little red anchors, is one that I get asked about all the time. I actually carry and use my Cinema Camera 6K as a DSLR or mirrorless camera. Even if the camera is of course bulkier and a bit heavier, it doesn't get in the way when carried that way. I have 3 of them of different sizes, and the reason I keep using them is because you can actually detach and swap them in a matter of seconds thanks to the anchors. A feature that is hard not to have after you start using it for a while. I've been using these straps for many years. It makes it very easy when packing or taking the camera in and out of the bag, and also they're very comfortable. Most of the time I also happen to have a stills camera with me, and I use the same system for both, which is quite handy to swap if needed. And to carry all of that, I use the Wandered Provoke bags, either the 31 liter or the 41 liter, depending on the destination. As you know, I'm a big fan of Wandered, and I've been using them for many years. The bag that I use the most for my travels is a Provoke 31 liter. It is super comfy, sturdy, and has lots of room. Feel free to watch my Wandered reviews for more specific info. The next item is the iFootage Cobra 2 portable tabletop tripod. Whilst I have a few normal size tripods, this one is small enough to carry anywhere and sturdy enough to handle my setup if needed. This one is ridiculously compact when folded, and in payload is about 8 kilos, which is pretty amazing for that size, which is about 17 pounds. It works very well when traveling and hiking and can even support the camera plus a 70-200 lens. Whilst I rarely use it, it is always in my bag and can be very useful for time-lapse or when the shot needs to be absolutely still. A small LED light. I often bring a small LED light just in case. At the moment it is either the Aputure MC or the Nanlite PowerTube 6C. They are tiny and versatile lights that are always in my bag. You never know when you might need them. On a documentary shoot, they can be actual lights as part of my lighting kit, but when I travel I can use them when it gets too dark to look in my bag or the car or something like that, and I've also used them to change lenses at night. Drone. Depending on the location, I also bring my drone, which is a Mavic 2 Pro. I love it and it is pretty much perfect for most situations. I also find it relatively easy to match footage with Blackmagic cameras. I really should upgrade to the 3 or the 4 though. Now you might be wondering about audio as well, and when it comes to travel content, I actually only use the internal mics on the camera, which are actually good enough for ambient audio, and if I need something specific, then I will use the SFX from Artlist. I'm quite happy with my current travel kit as it enables me to create beautiful images while still being very simple and straightforward, which makes it very easy to carry and to shoot. When I'm traveling, I like to experience a place and capture what I see the way that I see it, and prefer not to be too distracted by the gear and having to set up shots. I'm able to just grab the camera and the lens and just go. That's it for me for today guys, hope you've enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Don't forget to subscribe and let me know what is your go-to travel kit these days. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Also, feel free to check out my 2 ebooks, Freelance Documentary Filmmaking and Travel Cinematography, where you can find a streamlined but comprehensive overview from pre-production all the way to marketing, built on years of my own experience shooting short documentaries and travel videos around the world. And if you are interested, I'm also doing filmmaking mentoring sessions when you can ask me anything about a wide variety of topics.